Yeah, like good and bad, kind of.
So allies is always us.
Yeah, we were the allies in both world wars. So Germany's ringleader of the Axis, okay? Their tag team is
Japan.
Japan's one of them. Who's the other one I'm looking for?
Russia?
No.
Remember? No?
Russia?
Starts with an I.
Italy.
Italy. Japan. Japan's the third, okay? Now, this is where it gets tricky, okay? Because this is how alliances work. We declare war. Where's my red marker? Let me go back. Go on. All right, we declare war on Japan. Okay? So now we're in World War II, and we're on the Allies team. Okay? Honoring his alliance with Japan. Okay, this is the last bullet point. Because he has to honor his alliance with Japan, Hitler declares war on the United States. Hitler declares war on us. Do we see how that works?
Yeah.
So basically, two sets of kids at the playground. Japan shoves us. We declare war on them. Germany and Japan are on the same team. Germany declares war on us. Okay, that's how alliances work. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the fall of France. But, because we're going to circle back to that in a couple of classes. But, because he's in alliance with Japan, Hitler declares war on the United States on December 11th of 1941. That's about a week after Pearl Harbor. Okay, just under a week. That officially makes World War II a world war. That brings World War II just from here to the entire hemisphere now. Because Hawaii is right here. Okay, it's not exactly midway between the Pacific, or between Japan and the United States. That's ironically just called the island of Midway. Right here. Which is one of the turning points in World War II. Next class. Pretty cool lesson. But the biggest reaction, America now comes together. Okay? By this time we're already out of the Great Depression we were talking about. But now we're going to explode with making new ships and planes and ammunitions and guns and getting people on board with our cause. They started hanging those posters that says, I want you for U.S. Army. Sign up at the nearest polling station. Okay? Now here's a question. Okay? Which enemy did we consider to be the superior enemy? Germany or Japan? Who's going to be harder to beat?
Germany.
What do you guys think? Who says Germany? Raise your hands. Okay, put your hands up. Who says Japan? You can, if stick with your opinion, right? Yeah. The answer, we thought Germany was going to be harder. Why?
Because Japan doesn't have the oil.
Japan doesn't have the oil. Okay. Why do we think
Hitler has
Germany?
more power at the moment.
Hitler has more power at the moment. We believe Hitler to be a superior enemy to Hirohito. We believe it's going to be a lot harder to beat Germany, okay? Because they have this entire empire, and everybody is getting on their bandwagon, okay? Everybody, except for Russia and England, by this point are on the Hitler bandwagon, okay? These guys, we just cut off their oil supply. Is it really going to be that hard to beat? It's going to take a lot of people to win, but they can't really go anywhere because we were fueling the war machine. Okay? So we believe Hitler to be the superior enemy. Now, one of the more interesting and in the time slightly controversial, today highly controversial, reactions to Pearl Harbor was that we no longer trusted anybody that was Japanese. Why would we do that?
Okay, we didn't know they were spies or not.
Yeah.
Kind of. What do you got?
Okay,
We didn't know. Well, I'm looking for loyal. Okay. Yeah. So basically, spy. You were right. We did not know if there were spies among the Japanese. You guys get that?
It was
Oh, it was you. Okay.
Bill?
Yeah. Anywho, we did not know if there were spies within the Japanese. If there were wolves within a sheep here. Okay. So how do we think we're going to protect Americans against that?
Lock them all up or kill them.
We're not going to kill them.
Japanese concentration camps.
Pretty much. Camilla, nail it. So, Executive Order number 9066, okay? Do you remember how I told you FDR is like the king of executive orders, okay? That was his way of bypassing Congress to get stuff done fast. right? It's executive order. I, as the head of the executive branch, am ordering this right now for the national security of the nation. Right? Remember how I told you guys about that? One of his biggest executive orders was executive order number 9066. It was called the relocation of the Japanese. Okay? You understand? It's called the relocation of the Japanese. Okay? In a nutshell, this stated that all Japanese American citizens of the United States. Okay, so whether you're visiting here from Japan or whether you live here and you're of Japanese descent, you will be placed in an internment camp for the duration of the war.
What's your core Japanese?
You're getting in an internment camp. If you look Japanese and it's on your U.S. record, you're going into an internment camp. Because we just don't know if you're a loyalist to Japan or if you're loyal to the United States.
What about the kids?
Kids went too. I got what?
What kids do?
You never know. Actually, to answer that question, we will talk about what kids can do when we get to the Battle of Okinawa in a couple of weeks. Hey.
Little kids fight?
Yes, they did. Almost done. Stick with me. Almost done. Stick with me, guys. Almost done. Okay? So, scoot up. Thank you. So, they were placed in internment camps. Okay, now, this is not a concentration camp. Okay? We did not kill the Japanese. We just placed them in like a security camp. Okay? One, that doesn't excuse like how bad that was. Okay, that's still a pretty bad thing to do. But, nonetheless, we did put them in internment camps until we knew the war was going to be over. Okay? By this point in time, we did not know it was only going to last 4 years for us. Ladies, we did not know it was only going to last 4 years for us. Okay? So all the Japanese were told is, hey, knock on your door. You guys gotta pack for a couple months and follow us, or like get in this bus. Okay? They were dropped off in these internment camps. Most of them are in California. There are actually a couple in Arizona. I don't know where they are specifically, but I know there are at least 2. But for the Japanese, there was very, very little they could do to get out of this. Okay? There was one way for Japanese guys. Okay?
Did you join the army?
They joined the U.S. Army. We'll talk about that in just a second. Okay? But Executive Order number 9066 is called the relocation of Japanese citizens. Why did FDR issue this? I want the why. Connor. Are you raising your hand? Okay, I'll come back to you in a second. Monte.
Because he didn't know if they could be trusted or not.
They did not know if we could be trusted, and for the sake of national security, we needed to put everybody in a camp just to be safe. Yes?
Didn't they arrest like all of the Japanese people that live in the United States?
So, it was kind of like a form of martial law. You know what that is? Okay, so it's when the military came to enforce this. Okay? They didn't arrest them. Okay, unless they were like being uncooperative, then they would have been arrested. But more often than not, it was, hey, this is an executive order. You need to get your stuff. You need to come with us. Okay, and if you don't, then you'll get arrested. Okay, so it was more so you have to do this or you will get arrested. All right, Connor, what are you gonna say?
Why would they trust the Japanese men to join the army?
So we only trusted the Japanese to actually fight against the Germans. We did not trust them to fight against the Japanese. But we know, actually, I'll explain that a little bit more in like 2 minutes when we get to the foreshadow for the day. Any other questions about the relocation of Japanese? Alex?
What about the Japanese people that were already in the U.S. Army?
They were what?
What about the Japanese people who were already in the U.S. Army?
They would have stayed in the U.S. Army.
Like stay. So what?
We
if they-
needed literally everybody we could get.
So what if so the people they're sending to Japan, if they were Japanese, would they still stay right over there?
They would have stayed over there, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't have been on our homeland. It wouldn't have been on our turf. What the biggest intention, fellas? The biggest intention behind this is to protect U.S. citizens, okay? Because we just don't know what Japan's going to do next. All right? All right, so next slide for me. So this is an actual picture of one of the Japanese relocation camps in California, okay? What does it look like?
A prison?
Yeah, it looks like a prison, right? It looks really sad. Okay? Granted, yeah, the picture's in black and white, so that doesn't help, but, like, we see barbed wire fencing, right? They look like a bunch of cattle being, like, packed into a yard, right? Like, that's really sad, yes? Yeah, it looks like a barn, right? So Japanese kids, they got schooling when they were there. They still went to school. They still carried out like relatively normal lives as long as it was within the fence. We just didn't want them interfering with U.S. citizens because we didn't know if they were loyal to the Japanese Empire or if they were loyal to our state here. Fellas, please. Okay? Any questions about the relocation of the Japanese? This is one of the bigger implications of Pearl Harbor I'm going to test you on. Okay, the two big ones. We got roped into World War II because we declared war on Japan. Hitler declared war on us. Okay? The second biggest implication, Executive Order number 9066. Relocation of Japanese. Okay? Any other questions on what we went over today? Alright, so now we got a foreshadow. Go ahead. Actually, we got two. So like I said, the attack on Pearl Harbor, okay? The Japanese strategy was flawless. They took out the airfield first. They surrounded the island. They struck at dawn. They caught us while most of our sailors were still asleep. Okay? They took out almost every battleship they could find. They only made one mistake. They did not hit the submarine base. Which is ironically like 500 feet from where the Arizona blew up. They did not hit the submarine base.
Or were submarines underwater?
No, they were just docked at their harbor. They did not hit the base. I don't know why. But about a week after Pearl Harbor, okay, Admiral Chester Nimitz, I'm not going to test you on that name, Admiral Chester Nimitz sent most of his submarines full speed toward Japan. When we talk about the Pacific Theater in a couple lessons, we're going to see how the submarines destroyed the Japanese Navy. We could have arguably beat the Japanese with just submarines. It would have taken a lot longer, but we totally could have done it. If they would have taken out the submarines, the playing field would have been a lot more even. Okay? I've actually been on board that submarine right there. That's called the USS Bowfin. That is still docked at Pearl Harbor. It's a museum now. It's actually pretty cool being on one of those old school submarines. The second foreshadow, okay? This is called the Japanese 442nd, okay? So, like I said, there were only so many things that people could, or let me rephrase. There was literally no option for getting out of the Japanese internment camps unless you were a military-age guy that could go fight for the U.S. Army, then you can get out. Then you gotta go fight for us against the Nazis. Okay? They make this regiment called the Japanese 442nd. Okay? We don't think they're going to do much because we think that they hate us for putting them in internment camps. Well, we were very wrong. The Japanese 442nd, to this day, only fought in Europe for 3 years, has become the most decorated military unit in U.S. history. Does anybody know what that means?
They have what, the most purple medals or whatever?
They have won the most medals out of any other unit in U.S. history. Most Purple Hearts, most presidential citations, most congressional medals of honor. What? There are only 2 or 3 still alive. The last one was actually the last Senate pro quo, or pro tempo. I never pronounced that. Super cool guy. Actually lost his right hand against Europe, right, against the Nazis. I'll tell that story later. But what's up over there? Other than that, that's our lesson on Pearl Harbor. Okay? So biggest implications with Pearl Harbor. Give me one of them. Who's got it? Devontae.
They didn't take out the submarines.
That was their mistake. I'm looking for 2. Actually, let's just start over. What's the cause of Pearl Harbor? Okay? Name me what cause. Alex.
They cut off the oil.
We cut off the oil supply. Why did we cut off the oil supply? Take your time. It's in your notes. It's your second blank.
Cause
You're good. Want me to come back to you? Why did we cut off the oil supply? Alind.
because they attacked Indochina.
Because they invaded Indochina. Okay? When Hitler took out France, Indochina was up for grabs. Japan wanted it. They took it. Oil supply gone. Okay? Alright. Those are the causes of Pearl Harbor. The oil embargo. Dynamics. Okay? What is the date of Pearl Harbor? Who's got it? Connor. Hit me.
December 7th, 1941.
December 7th of 1941. Okay? December 7th of 1941. What was the intention of the Japanese strike on Pearl Harbor? What did they want to do? Alex,
Destroy our ships.
they wanted to take out the Pacific Fleet. They wanted to take out what we had over there so we could not strike them back. Okay? Other dynamics. Trivia question, what was the name of the ship that blew up? USS Arizona. That might show up on your test as a bonus point. Y'all pick up on that?
US Arizona.
USS, United States ship, USS Arizona. Finally, the effects, okay? Name me one effect. There are two big ones. What are the outcomes of Pearl Harbor? Stop. Give me one of them.
U.S. declared war on Japan.
Perfect. We are now in World War II because we declared war on the Japanese. Who declared war on us 2 days later? Germany, Hitler. Name me the other effect. You got it?
All the Japanese were like put into the salvation camps.
The relocation of Japanese, okay, to internment camps. Okay, that's in your notes, don't worry about it. Okay? To internment camps. Alright? I'm gonna borrow this real quick, is that okay? What is the gist of this political cartoon? What is this talking about? Brian?
The USA take off all the
The oil embargo, right? Where is the oil coming from in the cartoon? US. Who is stepping on the hose and bending it?
Sam.
Uncle Sam. Good old Uncle Sam, right? We'll talk about him when we get to the Cold War. Propaganda, huge topic. What is, real quick, I need you for 2 more minutes. What is the hose feeding? The war machine, okay? There is no such literal thing called a war machine, okay? But like, the war machine represents tanks, airplanes, guns, ammo, artillery, okay? The war machine means the country who's moving in a military direction, okay? We are bending the hose, we're stepping on the hose. Is any oil coming out of this?
No.
We cut off the oil supply for Japan. Yes?
Wait, so, at this point, were they still, using the method where you just go in hard, like Germany, you just went straight in?
Blitzkrieg.
Yeah.
Very interesting you mentioned that. The Japanese will for the first half of the Pacific War. We will talk about that next class. Great connection, I'm glad you brought that up. Anything else? Okay, I want y'all to make sure your name, first and last, and date is on the Pearl Harbor sheet. I want you to turn that in. You're keeping the political cartoon. We're good to stop recording now.